Right. Hello, everyone. I'm here with the wonderful Dewey Taylor. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And where in the world are you now?
I'm currently in right outside of Denver, Colorado. But yeah, I mean, I kind of hop all over the place, so who knows where I'll be next.
Exactly, exactly. Wonderful. So I'm wondering if I could ask you a few questions about your latest and your greatest.
Okay,
Winning
sure,
the
let's go.
Emmy Award. What was that like?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, first of all, it's very cool just to be nominated for an Emmy. That's awesome too. I remember I was actually on set shooting a completely different project. I mean, almost a year after we were working on that other project. It was I just got a Google alert on my phone and looked it up and was like, oh wow, I just got nominated for an Emmy. That's cool. And you have like 20 seconds to be like, amazing, and then you have to get right back to work, right? I would say the experience was really cool. But you and I have talked a lot about manifestation up to this point before, and for me, what I have found in my own experience when you're manifesting something, it's when you're in the space of when it shows up, I call it of course energy. You're just kind of like, "Ah, of course, it's like right on track. It's not this, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to me, right? And that's exactly what happened with this whole Emmy process, the nomination. And then we had a little bit of celebration afterwards, but we were right in the middle of another project. So we just kind of kept moving. About 2 weeks later, the crew kind of like stopped and we're like, hey, let's just digest this for a second, like that's cool.
Yeah.
So we had a little toast and talked about it for like 10 minutes, but that was about it. And then when the night came so fast, and it was so funny because I've never experienced the Emmys, right? So we show up, and I kind of had this image in my head that we were going to win. I kind of just thought that that was what was going to happen. So I was like, okay. And then we show up, and I'm thinking we're probably toward the end. We thought we were in the last block of nominees because that's how the way the nominations were announced. And right before the show starts, we find out we're literally in the first block. So, and then, you kind of get a little bit in your head because they're introducing all the rules and saying, hey, we're about to go live. Here's how it works. Don't do this, don't do this. And there's all this stuff they just throw at you. And then I'm realizing we're in the first block. And then they're kind of like, okay, have a great show. Bye. And then the show starts. So all the cameras go on, it's like this legit thing. And then I realize all the people that were nominated right before us, like none of the winners were there. So we didn't get to see anybody like go up and accept it and which way
Oh,
they walk off and so we were the first ones up on stage to accept. So that was very unexpected too, but it happened extremely fast. We won within the first like 6, 7 minutes of the show starting. And then we were just kind of like, okay, and we left. So it was a very quick trip. We got there, we got out, and very cool experience. But like I said before, it's kind of you just go right back to your regular life after that. Go
right.
back to doing what you were doing before. So it's really cool. It's a great reminder of how far I've come from where I was 10, 15, 20 years ago. But
Yeah.
and
You
very much,
said
yeah.
You said this of you had this of course moment. Describe that. Like go deeper into that. What was that? Oh, of course moment.
I would describe it very similarly to when you just love somebody so much and you both have talked about like, we're gonna get married. Like we know we will. We just, at the right time. You kind of feel that. So then when the person actually proposes, you're like, of course, like of course you're proposed, right? It's still a surprise. It's still exciting. You're still like, oh, all my dreams are coming true. This is awesome. But it's not the fact that it happened at all is not a shock, you know? You're
Yeah.
just so you're able to hold both of those truths in your hand of like, this is really cool. I'm so excited for this, but it's not I can't believe this. You know, it's not like that person showed up in a grocery store and you've never seen them and they're proposing to you, right?
Right.
That's what that of course energy feels like to me.
Love that. So like go deeper as far as like maybe for someone who has like all these creative dreams and aspirations and maybe there's some perfectionism in them so they're not actually moving towards it. They're
Yeah.
still like in the dreaming phase. You know, how would you share with someone to get themselves prepared for that of course moment? Because
Yeah.
put in the work, right?
You know what? It's a great question. I would say, use the word dream. I used to have dreams too. And one of my dreams was to win an Emmy someday, right? But just the wording of that tells you the energy space that I was in, 10, 15 years ago. Like one day I have a dream of winning an Emmy. It's so far removed from where you are. So I would say the work, quote unquote, and I'd say it's more of an allowing. You really don't have to do much, right? It's an allowing you to just authentically be where you are, the way you are, how you are right on your journey, and getting into a space where, the more plugged in I got, I think that's the right word. It's not work, it's just getting plugged in. You start meeting other people. I'll use Frankie Batista as an example. I've had the pleasure of working with Frankie recently in the last year, and he shot for the cover of like, Marie Claire magazine. He shot for like Harper's Bazaar and Vogue and like all these big, fancy schmancy magazines and stuff. And he's just one of the nicest guys ever, and we had this multi-day shoot and we were just like hanging out beforehand, going out to eat. And it was fun. And Sunny Wong, who's also a very amazing upcoming filmmaker. He's going to do really big things. Wouldn't surprise me if he's winning Academy Awards in the next 10 years. He was with us too. And like, we're talking just like really cool, down to earth, authentic people. We were talking about manifesting. We were talking about, quantum mechanics and fun stuff like that. It's just, so the more that you're around people who, have these reputations and who like are around big celebrities and do all this stuff, and you just realize we were all little kids dreaming about something at one point, and we're all just having fun doing it. I would say those people have always been my tribe. I just othered myself from it. So I think that that's the advice I would give to someone who's not quite there yet would be just allow yourself to be there, allow
Yeah.
yourself to get plugged in, allow yourself to realize you're not different from any of these people. You are one of us, and we are one of you, and just enjoy it,
Yeah.
enjoy it. It doesn't have to be tomorrow or someday. It can be today. And I would also encourage people to think about things. I say this a lot I oversee huge teams of creatives, and I say, especially to our junior team members, think of your work as a timestamp, right? So allow yourself to be like, hey, within this period of time, with the skills that I had developed up to that point, with my ideas right there in that moment, and with the limitations on a project or something, this is what I was able to produce. And isn't this a cool timestamp of where I was at that exact space? Now let me see what the next one is. I think that takes away that perfectionism,
Yeah.
like worried about what other people are going to think about it, or you'll think about it in the future. By the
Yeah.
time you get done with the project, you've already improved your skills and would probably go back and fix it before you want to put it out anyway. So you just
Right.
realize timestamp, oh, that's so cool. I'm going to honor where I was and what that is, and just kind of let it go. And it's just being in a state of allowing more, I think, just all around.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. And I love that. And also you mentioned, really being around these folks, right? Letting go of imposter syndrome. Like
Yeah.
how important is it to your creativity and to creativity in general to be around people who really push your limits? Like there's this
Oh,
like, oh
yeah.
my gosh, they're better than me. But like how essential is it to be around them in that creative energy?
I would say for any creative, that's what gets you to the next level, right? So it's essential that you're not the one who knows the most in the room. And I would say for me personally, I have learned that way my entire life and career. I don't have a formal college education. I went for one semester to college and then I was already doing what I wanted to be doing. Started my first business less than a year later. So I was just literally working right next to people who were saying, hey, I paid, $100,000 to go to school and I'm still sitting at the desk right next to you. Maybe don't spend your money there. And I was like, well, it's a good point. So long story short, I think we as humans think there's all these steps, right? And there's all these things I have to do to prepare and have certificate that I have to have. And the truth of the matter is, some of the best hires I've ever hired in my entire career have been people who don't have a formal education and they're just a solutions person. They go, hey, I trust myself to figure it out. Let's have fun. And that's it. You know, you don't have to have the training and the skills. And in fact, I think a lot of times that keeps us in a box. And it's hard for us to take feedback and hear because we're like, but I'm a trained singer, or I'm a trained graphic designer. And so how are you telling me this feedback? Instead of hearing like, you know what? I can see that. I can improve. I can do better and just have more fun with it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. And so we've both written books. And I've got a new course going on, Creativity Memoir. And, what would you say to someone who has a book within them that might
Yeah.
be hesitant and like, oh, there's so many books out there and now there's AI and there's all this stuff. And I'm like, what would you say to someone who's got a book within them? Like they have that spark, right? And why
Mhm.
would that spark in them an idea be there? It's kind of a twofold question, right?
Right.
Like listening to that spark of maybe, this creative project or that creative project. And, maybe just kind of speak to like that intuitive little
Yeah.
spark and how important it is to listen to it or it goes away, right?
Oh, 100%. I actually don't think that, I think everybody is a creative, by the way. I hear people a lot say, oh, I'm not creative. And I'm like, I completely disagree. It shows up in different ways, right? But sometimes people, I'm going to use like, for instance, I hear stay-at-home moms say that a lot. Oh, I'm just not very creative, right? But like, I'll use my mom for an example. She claims that, but she creates custom cards for people on their birthdays and their anniversaries, and she creates experiences, and people remember and they save them, and they're very special and very intricate too, like 3D pop-up cool stuff and puzzles, and that's
Cool.
very creative, right? She's
Yeah.
also and many other people I say create experiences, whether it's how you wrap a present for someone or thinking about the way you're going to write a card. And so when they get to this hotel, they're like, hey, I'm so proud of you for this thing. Or, those are all, that's being creative. Those are creations, right? So even the moments that we create and the connections we create are creations. So in some way, shape, or form, we're all creative. So that's number one. Number two, if to your point of not like kind of catching an idea when you're inspired, I very much think there's this universal energy source of unlimited ideas and potential and solutions, and it's all sitting there. And that state of allowing is what helps you kind of attach to that. For me, I have just had this flood of ideas over the last 10 years. I literally came up with like 6 new book ideas this morning. I'm not even joking, like really good ones too. So the the allowing the ideas to come and getting excited and writing them down and stuff is great. And I think that if someone has a book in them or an idea or just a project, I think the only thing that holds us back is thinking that it's bigger than it actually is. So
Because,
of whatever.
yeah,
I
yeah,
know I've never done it before, right? Or saying like, well, how do you write a book? Like, I've never written a book. I don't know how to write a book. Well, guess what? I didn't know how to write a book until I wrote a book. I mean,
right.
I didn't know how to write an article until I wrote an article. Now I've written many articles and I've done many interviews, and I didn't do an interview until I did my first interview. That's how everybody is. So you
Yeah,
just allow yourself to jump in and go, well, this sounds like fun, and just do it. I mean, and even if you look back 10 years from now and go, wow, that was a horrible book. Okay, who cares? Like, that's your first
right,
book. Just let it
right,
be.
right. And let's talk a little bit about that jumping in, and if it's okay to kind of reflect back to
Yeah,
your session when we had it a while ago, was it a couple of years ago now?
I think so. Yeah.
And just the stuff from childhood that stays in our head that holds us down, like what would you say to that to someone who maybe hasn't done that kind of work or has the doubt about just jumping in and it's not like you don't care about what people think, but it's like you got to care more about the wonderful things that have come into your creative imagination that you want to do, like share
Yeah.
share how you moved through that, because I know we've all had it. Stuff
Yeah.
has held us back, right? We didn't believe in ourselves, didn't think we were good enough. So how do you feel you got to this point where even if it's not like, oh, I'm good enough, so I'm going to do this, but it's like, well, I'm good enough to try, why not me?
Yeah. I mean, really, that's the way I look at it, and I'll say it in the big picture first, and then bring it back down to like reality. But in the big picture, it's very similar to like you want to just get to this destination, right? But instead of allowing yourself to be liquid and like move around the rocks, to and just allow yourself to flow downstream, because it's like, oh, it can be easy and it might take me a little while to get there, but it's right there. Like I can see it. It's cool. Like it's not impossible. Instead of allowing ourselves to be liquid and just move down the stream and enjoy it, and then eventually we're just happen to be there. We're like, oh, I can see it, and this doesn't surprise me that I'm here. Cool. We tend to be too rigid about, well, how do we get there? How does it look? And every time we're rigid, it turns us into a solid form and we can't move through the rocks and we get stuck, right? That's very similar to what my experience was. So it comes back to that allowing your journey to look however it looks. It doesn't really matter which rock that you're moving around, whether it's a big one or a bunch of little ones, or if you go left or go right, it doesn't matter. So when we're so rigid about what it's supposed to look like, well, what are the steps to get there? And you start asking more of those questions. What's next? What am I supposed to do? That's when we start getting rigid instead of just allowing it to happen, right? And allowing, yet again, from earlier, allowing yourself to be exactly where you are right now and just jumping in. And I'll give an example. I had a friend who had never been in the film industry before. She had seen me be really involved and excited about being in, books and films and just all me being creative. And she said, I'm not really creative in the same way, but I think I'd be really good at it. I don't know what role I would be. And I told her, I was like, I think you'd be a great producer. She's like, oh, I've never done that. I know nothing about it. But she had that, like, let me just jump in. She had that curiosity, right? And allowing yourself to go, hey, I'm not trying to present myself like Steven Spielberg to people or Shonda Rhimes. I'm just like, hi, I'm Sarah. This is who I am. I'm here right now doing this, and I just want to share it with people, and I want to learn, and I want to be curious. So, and without going through every step of her journey, she just jumped in. She had a desk job at a studio. Fast forward a year and a half later, she is an associate producer on Jerry Bruckheimer productions airing on national television, right? It happened that quickly for her. And it was because she just allowed herself to be who she was, where she was. And she said, this is what I want. Here's what I'm aiming to do. I've got great skills, never done it before, but I trust myself. And people really were on fire for that. They're like, I love her attitude. Let's pull her in. And, there was all these things that happened that led her there, but it was because of that energy. It's magnetic, right? And you end up moving through spaces really quickly too. And that's another piece, at least from my story too. I haven't been so rigid about, oh, if I could just find that one dream job or that one opportunity, or there's probably going to be a lot of little things that happen and you have to pay attention. It's like, well, maybe this feels not so great right now, so it's time for me to jump over here. And like that's how you move through those rocks, right? So you might go through 8 jobs in 3 years because you're getting somewhere, right? And you're intuitively trusting yourself to move forward. And it's very much just a tapping into you.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about that. Like, I know a lot of people, they're in jobs and they hate and this and that. Like, where is the place where it's, ooh, this is a dead end, I need to move from it, or whoa, this is hard right now, but if I stick with it and see it through, this is going to take me to where I want to go. How would you like share with someone the differences there, what
Right.
to listen to at that point?
Yeah, I think it really comes from knowing myself, right? If you know yourself and um, is the gate closed on you and you're trying to get through, or are you not walking through the gate? Those are two different things, right? So if an opportunity is there and saying like, well, like, yeah, I can get to where I want to go and I see a clear path here and nobody's blocking it. It's just me, fully realizing my skill or my potential or my whatever in order to step into that thing. That's walking through the gate, right? But I'm going to use an example here. Like, let's say you're an editor for video. You may not have the skills yet to be delivering on a project that would win an award, but it doesn't mean the opportunity is not there. So instead of getting frustrated, why don't I get those projects? Why don't I get nominated for an award? It's like, well, you have all the potential in the world. Maybe you just hone that skill, maybe listen to that feedback and go, wow, you know what? I'm really going to rise to this occasion. And I know I can do this and I am that good and I do trust myself. And then while you're also saying, you know what? I am going to do that. And I also really want that for myself. And that's okay for me to want that. You can hold those two truths in your hand instead of saying, well, I don't have it right now and I'm frustrated. I'm just going to walk away. You know what I mean? I think there's a
Yeah.
big difference. That's versus somebody saying like, well, we're never going to allow that, or, or just saying, well, we're never even going to submit for that award that you won. That's where you go, well, maybe I'm not going to be able to get that here because we're obviously not aligned in the importance of that for me versus somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's more of what it is, and trusting yourself to know, is it right within my grasp and it's calling me to expand, or is something keeping me from it that I need to move around? It's like, who's the rock? Is it me or is it something else outside of myself?
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned something so key, feedback. Like we all need feedback in order to move forward and get better. Like every executive has a coach, every athlete has a coach.
Yes.
So talk about feedback and how to kind of move through the ooh, that means I suck, as
Yeah.
opposed to leaning into it and going, what truth is here and what do I need to do with it?
Right. Well, that's the blame paradigm, right? We're either blaming other people or blaming something outside of ourselves or blaming ourselves. So when you're doing that and you're not able to take feedback, you're living in a blame paradigm. And a lot of times when people are resistant to feedback that I have found, um, they're absolutely living in that space. And it's more of a deflection. So they don't have to actually absorb that because they're not ready to not blame themselves, you know?
Right.
And so when you don't know a different way of doing it, you just naturally deflect or you just beat yourself up. There is another way of living, right? And it's just a worthiness paradigm. And it goes back to what we talked about before. When I'm like, yeah, my work is fantastic and I am worthy of that now and I feel good about it. So it wasn't a surprise that we got nominated, wasn't a surprise that we won. It's because of that worthiness, right? And I also take big swings. I swing big in my life and career. I mean, I try some really risky stuff. And a lot of times I don't say that to the financiers of projects and things, right? But I'm just like, you know what? I don't know how we're going to do this, but we're going to figure it out and it's going to be fun. And if we do it right, the end result's going to be fantastic. And I just learned to develop that trust with myself. And so I encourage younger people to do that too. It's like, just start doing risky stuff. When I say risky, obviously not anything like life threatening. I'm talking about like, take a risk in the way you approach something or the way you present something. And, you know, the more risks that you take, even when they don't go the way you think, you realize it's not the end of the world. And you go, okay, not bad. I can do that. And then also you get that feedback that improves your skill sets. But the third thing is, a lot of times people, especially like clients that I've experienced that are so rigid in their thinking, sometimes when you present something that way, it's amazing how many people go, wow, I never thought of it like that. Let's take a risk. And then you see that not only are people willing to take risks on you, you're really willing to take risks on yourself, but you've developed that trust with yourself that it can pay off too, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
I think all of that comes into play in that whole equation.
Yeah. I realized I twisted up a quote. It was originally from Nelson Mandela, but I say it as I never fail, I win or I learn.
Yes.
And so, like, back to that feedback part, how would you share with someone who, again, really like any feedback and they take it like, oh man, I just suck. I should quit. Like, speak to that. Like, how to, you're Mr. Manifestation. Like, how would someone like move through that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to just stop making it about you. You have to stop taking it personally. They're not talking about you as a human being. I actually say that a lot to junior team members. I had this conversation this last week with somebody who has been doing this over and over again, and I'm like, "Hey, we need to have a one-on-one just more about not taking it personally. Nobody's talking about you when they're talking about the work or a product of creation. That's not what they're talking about. So stop saying, well, my work is me. Well, then you've tied your identity to something outside of yourself, right? And that's what we do a lot, whether it's, you know, political programming, cultural programming, whether it's religious programming, we're tying our identity to something outside of our true self. All of us are spiritual beings first. So tying ourselves to anything physical, even the manifestation of an idea, that's a physical manifestation of a thought. And to tie your identity to it is just shackling you. So just stop doing that, right? And just this can be fun. It can be more like an arts and crafts project. And it can be more like, well, you know what? Maybe I like what I did, but if they're saying I can do it this way too, let me learn that way. And I could do it this way too, and I could do it that way too, and I could do it this way too. There's not one way to do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say to someone, and like you said, I completely agree. Everyone is creative. And I hear it all the time. Just people have an idea of what creativity or successful creativity or artist means. What would you say to someone who used to create, right? And then something happened, life got in the way, maybe family, maybe, the proper job or the money or whatever. What would you say to someone who has that creative pull in them, but has really put it on the back burner? And it's like that Brene Brown quote, right? You
Yeah.
don't, you don't lose creativity. It starts to show up in negative ways if you
Yeah.
don't use it.
Yeah, I mean, we are powerful creators, so we're just creating more negative experiences for ourselves, is what we're creating. But like to your point, it didn't go away. We're just creating something that we are like, I don't really like this. Okay, cool. But you created it, you know? And that comes back to allowing. We practice allowing in other spaces in our lives. We allow people to walk all over us. We allow a situation to get so pressure filled that our blood pressure goes up to 160, right? We allow people to talk negatively to us at work. We allow ourselves to not feel worthy. We're allowing a lot of things to happen in our lives. And so we have the choice then to go, well, if I can allow all that, I'm already practicing that. I can also allow all the things that I want. And I call this the secret to effectively saying yes. But it really means saying no to the things that you don't want allows you to say yes to everything that you do want. Right. So that's part of it too. It comes down to the law of compensation. You're curating your space. You're getting rid of the old and allowing the new, and you're saying no to things that aren't serving you and allowing new space for other things to come in. So I think a lot of times when people say that they're not creative or they lost their spark or they're not creative anymore, what they're really saying or what they're really experiencing when saying that is them just creating all the things they don't want. And so it's starting to, do all the things people talk about, set boundaries and say, no, I'm not doing that anymore. What do I actually want? And just, taking a little time for yourself. And what really started changing this for me many years ago was I implemented this thing, self-care Sundays. And I would just take every Sunday and just do something for me. It didn't matter what it was. If I wanted to write, I would write. If I wanted to take a walk, I would take a walk. If I wanted to go get a pedicure, I would get a pedicure, massage, right? But it was time and space that I created. Yet again, I'm a big. We all manifest in different ways and use different universal laws. I use compensation quite a bit to manifest things. So I just started creating more space for myself. And the more space that you have to just allow yourself to be without any expectation, um, that's where ideas come in, right? You're
Yeah.
tapped in, you're turned on, you're like, okay, cool. I feel really good right now and I don't have to do anything, but if I want to, I will. And a lot of times that's when so many great ideas come to me.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And let's talk about that. I mean, we both have been on health journeys too.
Yeah.
How does tapping into your full creativity, right? The creativity that you love, that you want to do, how, like in your personal experience, has that helped your health?
Oh, I mean, I think it's all related, right? Everything. It's a law of divine oneness. It all connects to everything else. So it's when I am just even taking time for me, and I don't want to listen to other people's opinions. I don't want to hear everybody else's voice all the time. I'm just like, and it's not me. People say I spend time alone a lot. I don't use those words. I invest time with me.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
actually take a moment to go, I am choosing to actually be with me and learn more about me. And I've learned to enjoy my own company. that's the first time in my life doing those things and making a conscious decision for that. That's the first time I've ever been like, I actually really like me. Like, I like me. I used to not
Yeah.
even think about it. So when people were
Yeah.
like, do you like yourself? I would kind of go, well, yeah, I mean, I guess, because I wasn't even paying attention to it. But I actually have invested enough time with myself to be like, I like who I am as a person. And that goes back to that trust.
Yeah.
So I think that directly correlates to, instead of like getting on a diet, right? That's manifesting something through force, or, oh, I didn't eat on my diet, extreme thinking, I broke it. You know what? It's halfway through the day. I'm going to go ahead and eat this box of cookies. I'll start again tomorrow. How many times do people do that, right? It gets you out of that headspace where you're just like, I'm just with myself, invested in my own health because I actually care about myself. Just the same way that I love and care about other people, I actually care. And if I'm not going to go stuff Oreos down somebody else's throat 24 hours a day because I care about them, why would I do it to myself?
Right.
And you just start looking at it very differently. And it's just asking the question in the back of your mind. It's always like, well, wait a minute, is this really what's best for me in this moment?
Mm.
You know what? I'm gonna take a second instead of sitting down and watching Netflix. I'm gonna go take a walk. I just want to, it starts to be more relaxing and it starts to be something you really look forward to. And when that care is cultivated within yourself, you just start treating yourself really well. Just like when you're in a new relationship with someone and you're just like, you want to treat them so well and give them everything to show them the best parts of you too. And you just start doing that for yourself as well, and you attract more of that into your life too. People see how you treat yourself and they start treating you better as well. So I think all of it goes hand in hand. And it goes back to what we said before, right? You're creating that for yourself. You're creating care by actually creating time to care about yourself. So
Right. Right. And caring for yourself and allowing yourself that creativity space and time, making it a must. Then you're feeding the soul, which allows you, especially if there is health goals, to do that because you are fulfilling yourself in such a deep way by
yes.
jumping into this creativity, whether it's one day. The other thing you hit on, which is just so important, is this kind of in real life experiences, nature, right? Like toning down all of the information coming in.
Yeah.
Um, I know as a kid before technology, I mean, there was so much time to be bored and wander, and I could
Yeah.
just be in a notebook and a journal. I could lay on the floor and just dream. And, I know that a lot of kids don't get that space, but folks my age and older and a little younger, like we didn't grow up with that amount of technology. And I think that when you step away from technology, even though
100%.
there's so much creativity available, like 24/7, nonstop, intense, but when you step away into nature, into in real life, using your hands, there's just something so beautiful and that cultivates more creativity.
Oh,
Like
yes.
I've always said I would rather be an average painter than be able to make the most amazing prompts for AI graphics ever because there's a realness, right? The touching, right? You're going to word this so much better than me,
Yeah.
but in the physical doing, like speak to that, like with your life of how do you obtain that balance?
Yeah, it's a great point, and I'm just before I answer the question, I'm going to pinpoint something you said because I talk about this a lot with our junior team members. And there's, we travel a lot too, and shoot a lot of commercials and shoot films and stuff, and there's always young PAs around and I see the same thing where people they're just so attached to their phone that, to your point, that there's a whole generation of young people who they've never not had a phone. They've always had a screen right in front of their face. And when you start looking at part of what, we talked about in TMG all the time was like blue light and what that actually does to you. And, it throws off your circadian rhythm. And that absolutely has something to do with your sleep and the way your brain works and your body function and your creative activity and all that stuff, right? When you let your brain rest, when you let your body rest, when you create space and cultivate care within yourself, like we just talked about, yeah, there's a lot of room to imagine and there's a lot of room to dream. And an example of that, so I have a film coming out And that film was written because I went off to get away from technology, and I rented a little tiny house um, for a week, and I was like going to write this other project. And as I was there, I just started imagining all these things, and I was looking out the window and seeing these cool angles of things, and I ended up writing a whole different movie while I was there. And we went back a year later and filmed it. So it's just doing that, to your point, physically being somewhere, um, and experiencing things, and it just kind of, it leads to unexpected amazing surprises. When you put the phone down, turn the TV off, and allow yourself the room to just exist a little bit,
Yeah.
you start filling that space with really cool, exciting things, and things that might even surprise yourself too. And that's the other thing. You allow yourself to be surprised. Don't try to plan it all too much. That goes back to your thing about a book. If somebody has a book inside of them, what holds them back? Maybe you're over planning.
Mm.
Maybe
Right.
you're
Thinking too
overthinking.
many steps ahead, like, I'll never get there because there's all these steps, as opposed to, okay, what
Yeah.
is the very first thing? Write down some ideas.
Well, and to your point, what I did as an exercise, this is also a project that I'm finishing up. I'm about halfway through. I started this just as a fun exercise, but it's like when I sit down to write and I feel inspired to, I'm just going to write like it's a diary, and I'm not going to go back and edit it. And it's with a pen on paper. Like, I write a lot on the computer, but I was just like, let me get back to basics. And I ended up writing this crazy fantasy book that I would have never thought of before. And it was because it's unfolding with every word. I didn't
Yeah.
plan the book. It just is, I'm just writing and intuitively. And it's the first time I've ever done it that way. But because I did something different, I had a different result, right? So there's not one right or wrong way to do this. And I think that's the other thing, is just play. Like, play
Yeah.
more. Well,
Yeah.
I did this last time I wrote a book. Let me write a book this way because it's 100% different. It's not being so meticulous or doing the same thing the exact same way, or at least for me personally, that's what has allowed me to have more fun in my life and career than manifesting through force so much, forcing yourself to write, forcing yourself to plan. Oh, I didn't do it the right way. Like I said, I got off my diet. It all is interconnected, right? So it's moving from that space to, let me just have fun today. How can I have fun? It doesn't, and for instance, the project that we just won the Emmy Award for, that
Oh,
was one.
share a little bit, just in case people don't know. Share the project and.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a commercial campaign that I won for directing and writing, and it was not the project I necessarily would have thought of off the top of my head. We just had a lot of fun, and the client is a luxury jeweler, and they were wanting to break into a new market. They're nationwide, wanted to break into a new market, and they were like, "Hey, we don't really know how to stand out. Like, how would we do that?" And I was just thinking, the new market was Nashville, and I was like, well, why don't we do something with dance, right? There's so much music and life there. So we used dance to express the emotion of what people feel like. What That's one of the interesting things about, like, making ads, for instance, that sometimes you can go like, well, it's just jewelry. It doesn't mean anything, right? Especially when you're dealing with like luxury products. That's just a handbag. It's just a diamond. Like only like rich people who waste their money buy stuff like that. And but the truth of the matter is, the people that they're selling to, they're only doing those, coming to buy the product because they're commemorating some really special milestone moment in their life, right? Whether it's an engagement or an anniversary or a graduation, or that's why they're going, right? Or I just am taking, like we said, self-care. I'm going to take care of me and finally buy me that ring I always wanted. Or that's the stories that people have when they're coming in and doing that. So it's given me this awesome challenge that I've definitely risen to go, well, how do we make this something that is important and unique and special? And that's what we did. And we were really placing the focus on those milestone moments in people's lives that are so important, and expressing the emotions and the joy and the wonderful things that you feel when you're experiencing that. And we use dance to convey that, and it was such a really interesting, unconventional way of doing something like that, that we just
Yeah.
had a ton of fun, and we met some great people. I also got to work with a group of people I've wanted to work with for years, and I would write it down in my journal, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, we just hire them. So great choreographers and awesome DPs who are also Emmy Award winners. And so yet again, that wasn't the project I probably would have thought if I were to have written it down. But when it happened, I was like, "Ugh," like I said, of course, that's the project, of course, because we just had a good time, we had
Yeah,
fun. We
yeah,
allowed ourselves to be experimental, and we didn't even let money. We didn't have a huge budget. We didn't let money get in the way. We said, well, how can we do this with the resources we have and have fun doing it? And it was very innovative and really cool how we brought it all together. And yeah, it was a good time.
right. And that's the momentum and the consistency of what creativity does,
Yes.
right? It's that consistency. Yeah,
Yeah.
every day. So you mentioned journal. Like I don't go anywhere without a journal. I mean, I read the book How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci, and they said, oh, he never went anywhere without a journal. And in that moment, something in me just perked up so bright because since before I can remember, 13 or 14, I always had paper and pen with me, no
Yeah.
matter what. Like it was a staple and it still is. I mean, my journal is everything. And for me, it's just this free space. I mean, you see people online, they have these gorgeous artistic art journals and every
Yeah.
page is designed. But for me, it's a sketchbook, it's ideas, whether it's a grocery list or a poem I wrote this morning about the snow falling. Like,
Yeah.
share your experience with your journaling. And I mean, I feel it's essential to a creative.
Yeah.
Essential. What is your experience? How has your relationship developed with journals and diaries and things like that?
Yeah, I would say I just I have several spaces. I don't yet again if I've allowed myself to just become this person who allows themselves many outputs, And I think that's why people will look at me and go, "Oh my gosh, you're so creative." And I'm like, "Well, I just don't say, well, if I have an idea, I have to put it in this handwritten journal." I have a handwritten journal. I also have a journal on my phone. I also have a Trello board that just has an insane amount of, I'm talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of projects. Like it's books, it's short stories, it's full length feature films, it's book series. I'll just give one example, but I have this whole series. I'm like, I've learned to identify in my real life when I'm like, I really wish blank. I'm like, well, if that doesn't already exist, then create it. So one of the things that I always wish around the autumn, I'm like, I love autumn for some reason. And I was like, I wish there was just like these autumnal books that I could just go to. And I know that a new one's going to come out all the time. And I'm like, ooh, that's going to be exciting to read this fall. And you just get into the fall spirit and it feels very fall and autumn. And that there's always new ones, but it is in the same universe, even if there's different characters. And I just would want something like that. But I also know myself, and I don't like sometimes to have to sit down and read a whole novel. So I'm like, well, what if it was almost like a collection of these short stories that all exist in the same universe with the same characters, but you can jump around and tell different perspectives. Sometimes they could be mysterious, and sometimes they could be an investigation. Sometimes it could just be a little meet cute about two people falling in love. But it exists in the same universe, right? And you can read as many of them or as few of them as you want because they're pretty short. I just like that idea. And so I came up with this whole series. I won't give too much away, but eventually in my career, I want to do it. And it would be something that other creatives can contribute to as well, right? It's not one author, it's lots of different authors operating in the same universe. So it'd be this really cool project. But I have literally like and every single one, and the one for summer, the one for autumn, the one for winter. Like there's probably 150 stories already listed in there as jumping off points. Um, but to your point earlier, when you have an idea, I think also having different places to put those ideas, I call them buckets, right? What buckets does this go in? So, okay, well, I'm going to go to my Trello board. Okay, and within Trello, do I already have a bucket? Is this a chapter of a book that I already have going? Is this a brand new idea? Is this like, what is it? And then actually putting it into some sort of a bucket is really helpful for me. Keeping organized with ideas and thoughts. And I also have like what you're calling, I call it a scratch doc, right? It can be a physical document, it can be a digital document, doesn't matter, but it's a place to just throw ideas. And sometimes every once in a while I'll just go read my scratch docs again, and it's so funny. I'm like, oh, I forgot about that idea, and it goes with something else I'm developing. and you just start organizing it and stacking it, and you're like, that's that ending I was at. Oh, amazing, right? And that's what
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we also limit ourselves as creatives, because I think I have to sit down and linearly create something from beginning to end, and if it's not perfect, and then we get frustrated, and then really creating is kind of like a puzzle in some ways. And then one day you just put the last piece and you go, oh, well, that one's done. Well, that's cool. And you just kind of move on to the next thing. So
Yeah.
that's at least my experience. So I think, having time limits on execution of certain things is a good thing. Like I'll use an example. Like once a film goes into production, having a time limit on how much time you're spending to shoot it or how much time post-production is going to take, that's a good thing. Because yet again, there needs to be a timestamp, there needs to be an end, because you're never going to be finished.
Mhm.
But when you're actually creating the concept and the idea for it to even give you a project, right? So there's the conceptual piece, then there's the actual project piece. The project piece needs a deadline. The conceptualization does not.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
the puzzle. Just have fun coming up with ideas and just, well, this piece goes with that piece. That's fun. And then all of a sudden, puzzles are going to start putting themselves together. And that's when it's ready to, okay, now it's time to put it into production, like write the book or
Yeah.
make the movie, or because that puzzle's put together. But if you put too much pressure on yourself at the beginning, when the pieces are coming together, usually that's when it falls apart.
Yeah. And so speaking right to that with my creativity memoir course, the women that came in and just so excited in the ideas, and I call it the teenage phase where, and I tell them like keep however you do it, digitally in a notebook, like any idea that now comes up, put it somewhere, but you
Yes.
have to see this one through. So kind of talk about, like, I call it the teenage phase. Like every painting has it. Oh, you have a great idea, you start, it gets really ugly, but you have to see it through.
Yeah.
So, talk about that. That's the hard part sometimes for a creative, right? We have all these ideas. Ideas are easy, but then there's like actual the footwork, and it can get uncomfortable and monotonous and like, oh my, like, how do you move through that?
Yeah. I mean, really, to me, it comes back to having fun. Like, if
Hmm.
you're not having fun while you're doing you're moving through force. So
So how do
technically,
you switch that? How do you switch
yeah,
that for yourself? Like say something's starting getting hard. How do you in your mind change it to fun?
it's a great question. I mean, honestly, it's more yet again an allowing. It's allowing yourself to have fun, not thinking that it has to be so perfect, and it's detaching yourself from the outcome. So, for instance, let's say you write that idea down in that scratch pad in the teenage phase, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this one, right? And you're just kind of challenging yourself a little bit. Maybe you start painting, I will say, right? And you have this idea of what it's supposed to be, but then in the actual production phase, when you're executing on it, it's not what you thought. If you don't allow yourself, yet again, that's being rigid. We're not moving around the rock toward our destination of having a completed project. In the moment, you go, well, how can we have fun with this? I was trying to paint like a pregnant lady, and now it's just this big brown blob, and it doesn't look like anything. And I'm so frustrated. Instead of trying to get it perfect, maybe you go, well, what could I play around with, and how could I turn it into something that's still beautiful, right? How could I turn it into something that's or at least meaningful? Doesn't even have to be beautiful, right? Not everything's beautiful in the world. So that's the whole thing, is like, if you allow yourself to change and shift in your process too, maybe you started with one thing, but maybe you end up with something better. I've done that a lot. Like I just said earlier, I went to go write a movie, and that was my goal. And I ended up writing a whole other movie, and I still haven't gotten back to that other movie yet, which is totally fine. And we're like 2.5, 3 years later, right? That's great. It's in the pipeline. If it's important enough, I'll get back to it. It's a great story. But this is the one that popped up, and it rose to the surface. So I rode that wave. And I think that's also really important, is to allow yourself to ride the wave of creativity. And sometimes the tide shifts a little bit. And that's, if you're on a surfboard, just kind of go where the waves take you. That's okay.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. And so again, like how would say someone came to you and they're like, oh, I started this project, oh, and now it's a chore, now it's work. What would you, again, like what are some like more chewable bites? Like,
Yeah.
you know, how would you coach them to be like, okay. let's break this down.
Yeah. So Simon Sinek has this great book called It Starts With Why, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of businesses use it of like, why are we even doing this? Because our work can get monotonous sometimes, right? It's like, well, I have to make money and I have to this, but if you have a why behind your organization and behind why everybody's doing it, and people can believe in the why, it's not just one person, it becomes infectious for everybody, right? But you can apply that to your own life and your own, I wouldn't even call it work, it's your own creative process, right? It is a process. And when you, if you feel like you're getting too rigid, well, it's not what I wanted, it's not what I, or I don't have enough time, right? It's taking a breath, stopping, and going back to your why. Well, why am I doing this? And once you get back to that and you're like, well, I'm doing it because it's something very purposeful to you, then it's like, okay, well, what's getting in the way then? So it starts with why, then it moves to what is getting in the way, and then it moves to how am I going to allow myself to be liquid and go around it? So what's getting in the way is, well, I'm frustrated because it's supposed to be like this. And well, am I okay with letting that go? You know what? I am. And maybe I'll do something different next time. Cool. And then you just immediately turn liquid again and moved around those rocks. And for me, I'll give an example. We've been in post production on the film I'm finishing up. It's about to come out. And there's some pretty great opportunities that have popped up with some companies that are like, hey, we're interested in distribution. And I'm like, hey, that's great. Pretty big names. So, um, but I've allowed myself to be like, I had this vision for this one sequence, and but that's what's causing the block. And I'm like, well, we have options. I could either raise some more money. We could do a whole new, slew of visual effects that we didn't think we were supposed to, we were going to do. So we didn't have the money budgeted, and, or I was challenged actually by a coach, which he said everybody has a coach. I have several. And I was challenged by a coach. It's like, well, are you willing for the three things that are getting in your way the most? Are you willing to just cut those things out and move on? And I was like, you know what? I am. I'm actually like, I think it's more important to keep moving and keep the momentum than to be perfect. And so in my mind, what I told myself was, I'm not compromising on quality. It's a great piece. But I'm like, I had so many good ideas. Maybe we just don't have to pack all of them into this first film. I'm going to make other movies and I can take this idea into another movie. Or what if something surprising happens? What if I like remake this movie 20 years from now and I get to do it the way that I want it to now? It's cool. But for right now, yet again, I'm going to timestamp it. I'm going to allow, and we're going to move on. Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, yet again, it comes all back to that allowing, for at least
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And how, I mean, I know you've been doing it for a while, but kind of think back before maybe where there was a little more struggle. And how do you get yourself to a space of that allowing
Yeah.
where maybe you weren't before?
Yeah. I mean, it is a practice for sure. It's very similar to like the first time you start doing yoga, you're like, I probably will never do this again because everyone around me is so developed and I'm flopping around over here. But if you just allow yourself to keep doing it and going to the yoga classes, all of a sudden you start getting more flexible over time. And then 3 years, 5 years later, you just go like, wow, I guess this new person came in and I remember when wow, look at where I'm at versus where I was, right? It's this slow process of just becoming. And if you just allow that process to happen, and yet again, it's creating space and showing up. That's really what it's about.
Yeah.
That's in every industry, it's every opportunity, it's even the projects that we want to do. Like, that's just an opportunity. So it's how we seize the opportunity. If we come to it saying, with rigid thought, like, I'm going to start this diet, right? And I have to lose this many pounds by this date or I have failed. Like, it's very rigid instead of yet again allowing yourself to just be like, well, let me just take better care of myself, right? Let me invest more time with myself. Let me ask questions about, well, am I caring for myself when I do this? All of a sudden, over time, you just start seeing all these positive repercussions from that you're not trying for. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that's what it is. It's just a commitment to showing up, creating the space, showing up for me and myself, and creating that time, and also not being so rigid about the outcome. That's
Yeah.
how I step into that space at least.
Yeah. And that's really so for perfectionists, how would you share with them a few ways to go about that? Someone who's just So I think a lot of times perfectionists, they're just so hard on themselves, so afraid of making a mistake that
Yep.
they really stop themselves from their full creative potential.
Yeah, and I mean, I know what that's like for sure, but I would say this, the perfectionism for all of us comes from the external. It never comes from the internal. Imagine no one else existed on the planet and you still wanted to write something. Would you care so much about what it was if you didn't think anyone was going to read it? Probably not. You'd be writing for you and you'd write whatever you want, however you wanted, whenever you wanted, and you'd go back and read it that way too, you know? So all of that perfectionism comes from us digesting what we believe an outside source is going to, what, how are they going to perceive this, how are they going to, is this good enough for them, right? It has nothing to do with us. So it really is also a shifting back to, yet again, trusting yourself and allowing yourself the space to do something for you. And back to energy too, you can start doing that before you even practice it in your creative life, just by, that was my self-care Sunday. I
Yeah.
was caring for myself and allowing space for myself. So I was getting in the energy of just like, Dewey takes care of himself. Dewey takes care of Dewey. Dewey's worth time for just for Dewey, you know? So then when I was in creative ventures as well, I would start thinking that way. Well, what about others? What about others? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. This can be part of my self-care Sunday, right? This is part of my self-care to be like, this is about what I think. Do I like that? And I'll go, you know what? I love that. Okay, that's good enough. Let's move on.
Yeah. And how important is that self-care Sunday, even to someone who's just like really struggling?
Well, I think that's when it's the most important. I think it's the most important when you don't feel like you want to do it at all. Um, so when I was in my worst physical state, I was the heaviest I ever was. I was the most depressed I ever was. I physically just didn't feel good, you know? That's when I started doing this years and years and years ago. And it felt so good very quickly, even though I didn't necessarily want to do that. Um, like you don't want people giving you a massage when you were like at your heaviest and you feel the stickiest. You know, you're like, oh, how don't people seeing me and touching me, right? But I would allow myself that. And then I got into the energy of like, I don't care what they're thinking. And the honest truth is that's somebody's job to give you a massage. They don't think that anyway in the first place. You're projecting that because it's what you're thinking about yourself, right? So it's yet again allowing it. Can I allow myself? Just look at yourself in the mirror, you know, and I am willing to embrace you. I am willing you exactly the way you are right now, exactly where you are, exactly how you are. We're going to have fun. We're going to go on an adventure. We're going to go on a journey together. And what if we do lose 100 pounds? Okay. We're going to love ourselves when we're that weight. We're going to love ourselves when we're this weight too. It's about making healthy decisions and cheering yourself on and loving yourself and embracing your own thoughts and your own worthiness of occupying spaces and occupying, or your thoughts even occupying paper, right? You can occupy space in many different ways, and that's okay. And the other thing too, it comes back to like law of polarity, right? For me, I love the law of polarity because the more attractive you become, the more you repel. There's always going to be that opposite charge. It's just law of the universe. So it's being okay with like, oh, if I use this as an example, but I think about somebody like Selena Gomez or somebody that's in the public eye. She's going to have this fan base that's going to be like, let's say she has 50 million people who know who she is. Out of that 50, maybe only like 10 million actually go, I like her. Well, that's 40 million people who go, I don't really like her, you know? Okay, cool. And then out of that 10 million, maybe she has like 2 million people who are just like, you've changed my life. I love everything you. And that's what people call their fan bases, right? It's not everybody who knows who you are. It's the people who are like that core group of like, this is really something that I am attracted to because of what you're saying or how you're living or what you're doing or how vulnerable you're being. It's not everybody at all. And in fact, you're going to repel a lot of people away with, especially the more you that you are, right? So it's also being okay with that and just saying like, how can I be the brightest light for the people it's going to make the biggest difference to? And can I just also allow myself to do something that is authentic to me and then allow people to embrace it or repel it? I'm not trying to make something for everyone, you know?
Right, right. Because you can't, it's
Yeah.
also like you have to make a decision. You have to choose like a niche, and not everyone's gonna love it, but that's okay. You don't want them anyways. You want the folks who are
Yes.
gonna love it. And that's so important with the book too. And I tell people like write to the one person, to the one thing. You can't
Yes.
write so general that you're trying to be, you know, okay with this group of people and okay with like you have to write to your one person, your one group, and see it through and be willing to really step into that opinion, that creativity, whatever it
Yeah.
is, and not worry about offending grandma or your great niece or anything like that, because they're not
That's
going to be interested.
absolutely right. And think about what you just said too. It's almost like what popped into my mind when you were saying that. It's almost like sitting down and going, okay, I'm going to write a religious book. And you're like, okay, for what religion? And you're like, for everybody. Okay, well, how? And they're like, how are you going to sit down and write a book that is deeply meaningful to people of every religion in the world? Because everybody has totally different viewpoints, right? So now, can you try? Sure, you can try. But I guarantee you, people like, well, I'll just say people I grew up with, they would sit down and look at a universal religious book and read for 2 seconds and go, oh, this is garbage. And they would shut it because that's repelling that it is not specified to one religion versus all, right?
Yeah.
So no matter what you do, you're always going to have people that are not going to be attracted to what you're doing. So, like, to your point, just be authentic. Just say it, just live it, just speak it, just show it, just do it. That's it.
Yeah, I with my Angel book, I mean, I put it out there as more of a spiritual book, and I approached an editor who was very religious, and you have to have a resilience about you, because she wrote back like super nasty, just how dare you? Angels are blah blah blah.
Yeah.
What right do you have? I wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole. And I know my younger self would have chucked it into the closet and
Yeah.
never ever finished it. And I think there's something about rite of passage and going through all that younger, insecure stuff.
Yeah.
And when you move through it, you do the work to move through it. Like there was something strong enough in me to go, okay, that is one person's opinion. It's
Yeah.
the same thing with like any kind of criticism. It's funny, you can have 20 people say the most amazing things to you, and then that one person, right, who's clearly struggling with their own life to say such negative things about you.
Yeah.
Where does your mind want to go? It wants to go to the one negative instead of the 20 or 40 or 50 or 100 positives.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll even add to that. I'll say, because we were just talking about the Emmy, that was a very interesting experience about who celebrated it, who said congratulations, who didn't even give a phone call, and then also who tried to make it about themselves. That was very interesting.
Say more. This is so juicy. Say more.
No, I mean, I literally, um, just full disclosure, I'll say this happened in several spaces, but I'll say the most dramatic one. We had, after we won, I had the director of like the Emmy Awards call with his like the National Academy of Television was like, hey, we had to flag something because there was other people trying to buy replica statues of our winning statues because they were claiming that they had also won. And so other people tied to the project, wonderful people, but it's just some people just don't want to, sometimes it's not all of our time, right? And I say this too, like, if you're not willing to celebrate other people when it's their birthday, most of the time you don't get celebrated when it's your birthday, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of what I was going through. Is like, this is very interesting. Now, there were definitely people who reached out and said congrats and were very happy. But what I realized too is there's some people who just can't even digest that. They don't
Yeah.
even really know what it means or how to celebrate because they haven't even dreamed that big for themselves. So it was just this place of me just really looking in the mirror and going, I'm proud of you. And
Yeah.
even though there's all this rigmarole going on, and it honestly got quite dramatic in a way where I was just like, whatever, it's fine. At the end of the day, I just built this beautiful display, and I got this beautiful cloche and everything for this Emmy, and it's sitting with all my books, and it's my little library area and stuff, and it's so cool. And I just look at it and I'm like, you know, we did it. Like, that's cool. And
Yeah.
when I say we, some of the work we did with, I call my younger self Buddy, and I call him Buddy because I'm like, you are my buddy. I didn't feel like I had a buddy, so I call him Buddy. And I just look and I think, like, we did that. Buddy and I co-created this incredible Emmy Award, and nobody can ever take that away. So even though people try to make it about them, there are some family members who didn't even give me a call and say congratulations, which was very interesting. And yet again, I'm not holding it against anyone. I just don't think that some people realize maybe what that would have meant,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But to that point, I could have let that absolutely ruin my experience.
Yep. Yep.
But instead, like, that experience, first of all, it came so fast. The award came so fast. We show up, we won so fast that we had to leave the next morning. We flew in the day of, flew out the next morning, went right back to work. So it's one of those things, like, it could be very easily passed over. But at the end of the day, it's like, I manifested that. We manifested that. It is still just as much of a cool victory. And I allow myself to go back to that and appreciate over and over and over. The gratitude keeps coming, and it's not the moment wasn't about everybody giving me accolades. It was
Yeah.
about me sitting in my own worthiness. That's what it was about.
Yep. Yeah. In my creativity groups, I mean, whether it's painting or the creativity memoir, whatever it is, like, I don't know how I created it. It must have been a manifestation thing, but I have the most amazing people in my groups. And I say this early, and I say, be careful who you share your good news with. And let's
That's it.
cultivate a place where all of your good news is welcome. And that
Yes.
we are, and I don't even have to lecture these women anymore. It's just like, people come on and they have wins, and everyone's just like, oh my God, that's so great. Somebody gets sick, everyone sends her card,
Yeah.
get well. And it's so important. I mean, I love my group. Like, I miss my groups when I have to miss a week, because they are the manifestation of the community I have always wanted,
Yeah.
where we lift each other up. Because
Yes.
on a day to day, if people aren't doing the internal work, they can project. And especially folks, I share, I'm like, that person you go to with the good news, and then all of a sudden you leave them and the good news is no longer good. It's actually
Right.
turned into a horrible thing. I'm like, those are the people you bring your problems to, not your wins,
Yeah.
right? Because they're never going to be happy for you. They're never going to
That's
let you
it.
be happy for yourself. So
That's
I
it.
say,
100%.
go
100%.
go complain to those folks, because
Yeah.
that's the level they can get to. And then
Yes.
bring all your good stuff. Like, you need a group. I think everybody needs at least the one, right? They say you need one person to believe in you.
Yes.
If you focus mostly on that, or if you can cultivate a group or come into a group, that's what builds you up. And that should let that be the bulk of your focus. Listen to their words and
Yeah.
their encouragement, not the naysayer.
Oh, 100%. And I love that you're saying that, because the truth is, goes back to polarity. That's always going to exist. If you only want to live in an experience where only what you want exists, then you're always going to be experiencing the negative, right? Because
Sure.
there is its opposite. If you just embrace all things exist. If I want to have a nice dinner, somebody's starving somewhere in the world. If I want joy in my life, someone's experiencing pain. So I could be that person not having a meal or not experiencing joy and experience, right? I could be that, or I can allow myself its opposite. And once
Yeah.
you, and it's not saying we ignore everybody that's experiencing its opposite. That's where empathy and compassion and reaching your hand out, understanding, all those things come in. But you don't have to, like, to your point, get to that level. I think Abraham Hicks or somebody said some quote that was like, you can't ever be poor enough to make a poor person rich. You can't ever be sad enough to make a sad person happy, right? You can't ever experience enough pain to make somebody in pain feel relief.
Sure.
And that's really what it comes down to. It's like, you can be there to say, hey, my hand's always out, and you can come up here with me. I would love for you to come up here. I understand you're not experiencing something that's exciting or joyful, but I'm not going to go down there where you are.
Right.
And
Right.
to your point, like, there are people who just live there their whole lives. They
They
can't
do.
be happy for you. They can't, and it has nothing to do with you. It's
That's right.
100% has to do with them.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And I share that, if you bring something to someone and they can't be there for you and embrace the happiness, or they're just so mean or so vicious and
Yeah.
tear you apart, it's like, if anything, and you're an empathetic person, step back and just be like, wow, that must be really painful for that person that they can't
Yes.
see the bright side to anything.
And that,
Yeah.
what you said right there, Nicole, that's exactly the same thing to do, that we were talking about earlier with like the work. It's the same thing to do with everything. Just step back from it. And same thing to do also with your control issues, with having to be perfect, right? Just go, you know what? I'm removing myself in that same way, and it's allowed to be what it is. People are allowed to experience it the way they experience it. Remove yourself from the attachment of being involved in all of those outcomes or all of those emotions or all of those thoughts. Just create a safe space for yourself.
Right.
It's your protective bubble. Allow, curate a space where you go, what do I feel comfortable and really good about allowing into this space? Do I allow people to criticize me, or do I allow people to give me feedback? Even what you just said goes into feedback. Detach yourself from the feedback and don't experience it as an attack. Go, well, this is someone's perspective. I could allow myself to absorb it and then try new things, or I could get defensive about it and just shut out feedback, which is
Yeah.
not something I would recommend. Feedback's very good.
Feedback is amazing and excellent when you have like the coach or the mentor in your life who truly has your best intentions in mind.
Yes.
Right? We have to be, like in painting, I'll say, hey, I'm going to give you some feedback. I don't say critique, because the critique, even though it's feedback, if it's got this negative, if it's coming from a place that's not trying to help you, but just trying to tear you down, different
Yeah.
space. So there's a few more things I want to talk about, and I'm
Sure.
curious, how you go about it. And we touched on it a little bit earlier, which is like self time. I mean, I believe in, we get news so quickly, from all over the world. And here's the thing, a catastrophe is happening in some place in the world, in somebody's life at every moment.
Yeah.
And for those who are just, I know people, they wake up in the morning, turn on the news, they fall asleep to the news. Their phone is the last thing that they look at. And I know from my own sanity, I have to stop the news most of the time. It's like, okay, what's going on right here? And even during, 2020, I had to look outside and go, okay, there's no fire. There's not dead people in the street. It's
Yeah.
actually a sunny day. Birds are chirping. Let me do some art, because there's watching this news and the numbers and this and that was terrorizing me to the point where I couldn't function. So, what are some of your rituals? Like, I put the phone either in another room or far away from me at night. The last thing I do is either read a book or look at my journal.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing in the morning, I get outside, take the dog out, get a little fresh air, do a little movement. Like, what are some of your rituals? How do you keep the world and, all the stuff that's going on and just the millions and millions of bits of information we're flooded with? How do you balance that?
Yeah, I totally am on the same page with that too. It's funny, people will, this happens often. Oh my gosh, the this and the this and the, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I don't even know what's going on. And I'm like, and I know there's a huge camp of people in the world who say world events are so important, right? And I'm like, in a sense, yes. But here's my take. We're universal beings, right? But we're having a human experience. Humans can really, unless you have grown your magnetic prowess, right, becoming big in the world, right? And this was another thing we talked about. TMG was just the different kinds of attraction, right? You have gravitational attraction too, which requires more mass. So you're not magnetically attracting, which is where polarity comes in, positive and negative, right? So you're going to repel people, but gravitational attraction is when you get really big, right? Like a celebrity, more people know who you are. You also have more money, more opportunity, more everything. You pull everything into your orbit. So you're going to pull all those people in to know even who you are, to then even have opinions about it, right? So when you're in that space, of course, maybe you can make a more global difference. But if you're not that big in mass, you really only maybe have a very small community effect. And so to worry about global events that you're not going to do anything to fix is literally just worry for no reason because you're not even in a place where your mass is big enough to do anything, right? So for me, I understand where my reach goes. I think I have a little bit more than a community reach, which is nice, but I definitely don't have a global reach yet. When I do, maybe I will be a little bit more informed on global things, but I'm not. But I also definitely would not turn the news on, because the news is also very opinionated. I tend to try to stay away from opinions, just in general.
Yeah.
So I will look at data points, and that's how I differentiate the two. So if somebody's presenting something as a data point, but they're not trying to spin it to say, and here's what that means. I don't want you to tell me what it means. I want to trust my own intuition to decipher what that means. And if I'm being called to take an inspired action to do something or whether I'm not, there's so many different types of people in the world and different people are here for different purposes. And maybe there are people who will feel inspired action and feel called to use their resources and their time and their thing to do that thing. And that's not for me. And that's okay too. And vice versa. When I'm called to do something, sometimes I'm just like, will you guys get out of my way? I'm more qualified to do this than you. Just let me do it, right? So when I'm called to do something, I want all those other people who don't know what they're doing to get out of the way. So I would just say for me, I create a lot of space for myself because of that. I don't allow myself to be tied up with obligation in any way, shape, or form. That's family, friends, community, news, anything, right? I just create space and I allow myself to take inspired action when it feels correct to me. I also allow my neighbor to do the same thing. So it's also removing judgment. If somebody's not acting on something that I would act on, I don't judge them and say, "How that's disgusting. How could they not?" That's none of my business. I'm responsible for me. And in the universal sense, if we all were tapped into our purpose and didn't judge one another and allowed ourselves to be more authentic, I feel like everything in the world would be more synergistic, I'll say, right? It's not saying there's not going to be a negative because there always will be, but I think we would see a little bit more movement on and more synergy created with that. So I think for me, it's just not forcing myself to be attached to what everybody else is telling me I'm supposed to or have a reaction to everything in the way that they're telling me I'm supposed to. And that frees me up to create the space. So, and it's not even just with like politics, it's with religion, it's with familial relations, it's with friendships, it's with, it's removing yourself from anything that is an obligation is very different than creating connection, authentic connection through passion and purpose. That's very
Yeah.
different.
Absolutely. And I mean, I had people literally call me, oh, you just want to put your head in the sand. Oh, you're so selfish. Why won't you watch this and take this on? This is
Yeah.
what's happening in our world. And I literally, and I believe, I know this to my core, and I'll just say, I get that, but I'm not going to be a functioning person in society if I sit there and watch all this news, all these things I can't do anything about.
Right.
I'm not going to be a functioning person. So the way, if you call it selfish, me to be a functioning person, I need self-care. I need creativity, and I need to turn that crap off. Because like you said, it's somebody else's opinion.
Well, and to what you just said too, it's a great example of what we were just talking about. That is not my decisions are not your business. I don't even allow people in my space that would comment on something like that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And that's the truth, and that's how curated my space has become. I'm like, you don't have permission to give me that. You don't know enough about me or my purpose to even be commenting on it. You're putting
Love it.
something on me that
Yeah.
has to do with you, and the fact that you don't even see that boundary should exist in the first place makes you an
Right.
unsafe person for me. So
Right.
you're not allowed. So I
Right.
don't allow opinions like that. I
I
don't
love
allow.
this.
No,
Yeah.
it's the
And
truth
and
because
you
it's
weren't always like that. I mean,
no.
like talk a little bit because some people can hear that and I understand it, but some people can hear it and like, oh, he was just born that way. He can just
Oh, not
write
at
off
all.
people who do. Like, talk a little bit about your journey to get from everybody's opinion matters and it's shaping me to where, like, no. And it goes along that line of like, you are the result of the 5 people you hang out with the
Oh,
most, and
100%.
how essential that is.
So Yeah, first of all, no, I was not always like that at all. I was
I
actually
know.
quite a people pleaser. I cared a lot about what other people thought of me. Part of that was because I grew up in a cult. I was also gay, and so there was all these things that just didn't. So I was always putting on a mask and trying to be something and trying to, I was known as the funny guy. I was very outgoing, even though I'm not really at all. Um, and what's very interesting for me is I think it just got so exhausting. It got so tiring. And I
Right?
think that's part of why the tower moment in everyone's life is actually a really good thing, right? When things get to a place where you're like, I can't do this anymore. Why is this so hard? And great. Awesome. It doesn't have to be that hard. And that's when I come back to that allowing. You can get to a place where everything comes crashing down, or you can start noticing it earlier on. And I do, trust me. Now I go, wait a minute, I see the trajectory, and I focus more on trajectory than anything else. I see the trajectory of this. If this is not moving, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if it's not moving in the like 3 clicks to the right, because I know I need to move it 50 clicks to the right in order to get it to where I'm going, I see that we're not going to hit the target, and I'm not going to waste my time.
Yeah.
So I just go, okay, that's cool, no worries. And I allow things to, maybe I'll come back to that project, or maybe later down the road I could have a relationship with that person, or maybe totally fine. Allow. But
Yeah.
right now I'm not going to force, just not going to do it. So I think I got to that place through several processes, we'll say,
Yeah.
but it really comes down to, yet again, it's detachment, detaching from, I'll use an example, this particular person has to be in my life because blank. People have so many different, I coach on this a lot. People have so many different things that they'll say, well, because they're my family. Well,
Right.
because we've been together for 20 years. Well, because we were best friends since preschool. But the truth of the matter is, we're always evolving and growing and changing. And if we've gotten to a place where we have desires, right? And we're like, this is the life I really want to create. Maybe that person's not creating the same thing. And
Yeah.
maybe at one point you guys were so vibrationally attached for whatever reason. Sometimes people come together as friends in high school because they gossip a lot. But maybe you grew out of gossip. Maybe you don't
Yeah.
want to talk about other people.
Yeah.
It's allowing things to change and allowing you to say, no matter what happens, principle is I always call this fill in the blank. Principle means like I only allow blank for blank reasons, and so blank is not allowed in the space.
Yeah.
And you should be able to fill that in with my mother is not allowed in this space.
Right.
My wife is not right, whatever it is. You should be able to do that. My best friend, and allow yourself to be like, you know what, that's okay. And
Yeah.
and boundaries are not about controlling other people's actions. It's you
Yeah.
saying, here's what I allow and disallow. And that's it. And you're allowed to do whatever you want. And I'm not even going to say it's right or wrong, but I'm just going to create what I want in the world. That's a powerful creator, someone who
Yeah.
says, this is the space I'm curating. And this is not open for discussion. And it's also not open for you to create my space with me or even have an opinion about my space. This is my space.
Yeah. It's so amazing. I didn't intentionally step into what you're talking about, but I find it happening. Like,
Yeah.
because there's more people in my life that feel good to be with. Like, I have, hope this person doesn't watch this, but I have someone in my life who I feel, and it's just my story, and I'm not sure what that person's story is because they don't share it, that I have spent so much time loving this person,
Mhm.
going out of my way, checking in on the person. And it's really weird. I don't know what happened exactly, but about a year or two ago, something clicked, and I'm like, I am so tired of putting out energy to someone who doesn't give it back.
Yeah.
And I stopped. I just stopped. I'm like, oh, this person's birthday coming up. I should card a special. I mean, I would spend a lot of time on cards and gifts and everything. And I just stopped because I'm like, I'm not a tit for tat person, but I'm expelling a lot of energy to like love and show someone that I
Yeah.
love them. I'm not getting much back. Why don't I focus that attention on someone who actually will reciprocate and who like
Yeah.
comments and loves? But it was really hard because it is one of those things, like you said, it's been going on for so long. And I
Yeah.
really had to look at it. I'm like, this actually doesn't feel good. Trying to love someone so much that I don't feel any love back. And actually,
Yeah.
few words trickle in where it's like, oh, there's resentment. Oh, there's dislike. And then they don't want to have a conversation. So I'm just like, okay, what if I let go? Right? What
Yeah.
if I just let go, go down the river and give my energy to
Yes.
those who actually want it and reciprocate?
That's it. And
Pretty
that's everything
amazing.
we've been talking about. It's
Yeah.
exactly what I experienced too. And also that I love this quote. I forgot the author's name, so apologies. But she said, you can love somebody, every day of your life and still be happy they're not in your life. And
Yeah.
that's what I've experienced so much. And it's not that the door is not open. It's yet again, it's that metaphor that I said earlier of like, you can come up here if you want to, because this feels good up here. I'm not going to go down there though.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And maybe some people never go up there. Okay,
Right.
that's not up to you, but you don't have to compromise who you are as a person or what you allow and allow people to treat you a certain way or allow negative energy. I call what you just said. That's a whole nother conversation. I call that the black hole. It just sucks and sucks and sucks and sucks and it just disappears. The energy goes to nothing. So
Yeah.
there's no point in doing it. And I feel like when I hear a lot of clients of mine when I'm having conversations and they talk about and are explaining kind of narcissistic relationships, that's what I'm like, that's the black hole. You're pouring yourself into something that doesn't lead to anything and it sucks you dry, right?
Yeah.
You don't get anything back. So and yet again, that can happen for any number of reasons. And sometimes, like in friendships, maybe there's just time for a pause. And then you come back 2 or 3 years later and you talk about it, and some person goes, well, this is what I thought was happening, but then I realized this, and they were on their own journey, having their own soap opera, and it wasn't supposed to include you. So you're like, oh, glad I avoided that. Great.
Right.
So
Right. And so what I feel that we've really come around to is it's this whole notion of how self-esteem and building your self-esteem
100%.
actually helps you step into your creativity
Yes.
in a whole way that wasn't available when you're just so locked in and worried and paralyzed by what you think everyone's going to think
Yes.
or
No,
feel.
100%. Self-esteem leads to worthiness, that sense of worth. And self-esteem is cultivated, and there's a lot of science behind this too. Self-esteem is cultivated by that jumping in process, by allowing yourself to play in the mud, allowing yourself not to mess up or do it wrong, but to try things and to go, oh, wait a minute, that didn't work the way I thought. Let me try it this way. Let me try it that way. And just have more fun. The more you just do it and you live in it and you embody it, and the more fun that you have, all of a sudden just magic starts happening, right? And then you start to trust yourself more and you realize it's not so linear. It's not I did it right, I did it wrong. Oh, yeah, it's not I started and then I stopped and then it's more of just a living in the moment. It's a journey, it's an experience. And if you allow yourself to just experience more of you, more of life, more fun, more just be. And then all of a sudden one day you're going to go, "Oh, I am that. Like I am an Emmy winner. Oh, cool. I just was that cool." It just becomes a lot easier. That's what my book Manifestor's Guide to Ease is about. How do you allow more ease into your life? You can manifest through ease. I know it seems impossible, and a lot of times the two universal laws people work with the most are people will they align with they take inspired action, right? So what's three really? Starts with law of vibration. They try to get their vibration high, right? Get excited about something, get inspired. Then they take an inspired action. And then through the action, there is a result, right? So that's law of cause and effect. Most of the time we manifest that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's awesome. It's a great way to manifest. I do it every day. But there also is a way that you can manifest through just pure thought and joy and living and being and existing that doesn't really require a lot. You just have fun in the process, and then all of a sudden you go, oh, wait a minute, that thing happened. Well, that's cool. That's what
Yeah.
happened with me in this Emmy Award. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I do I think it's so important to emphasize that creativity creates joy.
oh
Joy
yeah.
creates self-esteem and health. And that they're just hand in hand. Like you said in the beginning, we are all creative beings.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of stepping into whatever that creativity for you that's calling you
Yeah.
to show up for it, to show up for yourself.
100%. And also just that this is real, like, right, all your dreams and wishes and wants, and it's not in some faraway distant fantasy kingdom, right? I was on the phone like very recently with this Academy Award winning producer, and it's hilarious. He answers the phone and it's all like down in the corner. He's in like a gross sweaty top. He's like, I forgot we were gonna have a call, I'm sorry. And all of a sudden he's in with his family in the car. They're like, hi, and they're all going through the car wash, so it's really loud, and it was just a mess. But I was laughing so hard because I'm like, what a just a normal guy, and we're all just normal people, right? That's the whole
Yeah.
thing too. It's like this is all accessible to you. Like don't get caught up with something you're removed from it, because you're just not. We're all having an experience. We're all worthy of whatever we want, and just get in and have fun. Dive in. Just be authentic. It's okay if you want to be Steven Spielberg to not be Steven Spielberg right now. That's cool too. Just start having an experience.
Right. Right. And your experience is going to be different than
Yes.
anybody else's. Like you can aspire to a certain level, but it's also important to know you're going to do it in a different way. You can't be Steven Spielberg or Van Gogh or any of they're already taken. Like you can only be you, and you can learn from those who've
Yeah.
had the success, like learn from them, get yourself around them, read their books, follow them, etc. But you have to be you. And when you step
Yep.
into that authenticity, your creativity in any way that it wants to manifest, like it will pull you to it. It will bring you in.
Yeah.
And that was really difficult when I was younger with art, is I kept thinking art meant something beautiful. Like even though there's
Yeah.
all these dark artists, I thought it meant something beautiful. And if you can't be beautiful, then you're not worthy. My favorite scene always is, remember Nightmare Before Christmas, where Jack Skellington is trying to cut out really pretty,
Yeah.
snowflakes, and he opens it up and it's the spider. Like that's how I felt. Like I remember one time I was trying to paint a really pretty Valentine's card for my mom, and the colors looked like blood. And I'm like, I can't send this to her. It looks like a
Yeah.
bloody mess, right? Before I understood color theory. And I had all this judgment on myself
Yeah.
as to what art should and shouldn't look like. So I hid it for decades. I never stopped, but I hid it. And then once I stopped hiding it, and I got a mentor, and I was like brave enough to like show my
Yeah.
paintings to someone who could go, oh, you just need to shift the colors and warm and cool and da da da. And I was like, ta-da! Oh my gosh, they saw something I couldn't see. And I'm finally at a place where I'm showing it to someone who cares enough to give me
Yeah.
good feedback, as opposed to, you're scary. What's wrong with you?
Right.
Why are
Yeah.
you
That
doing this?
that
It's ugly.
vulnerability. Yeah. I mean, like, just allow yourself. Like, yet again, vulnerability is a huge part of it. Being brave. Brene Brown has a great talk on that on TED, or TED Talk on
Yes.
Netflix. Highly recommend. But
Yes.
it's that authenticity and vulnerability and what that actually means. And yet again, a lot of that comes back to cultivating a space with safe people who you're not letting. If there are people who you are vulnerable with and they abuse that privilege and they put you down, or they would say something like that, then those aren't the right people, right? And so
Yeah.
it's curating the life and the space and the opportunities and the joy that you want, and just having, like I said, it comes back to having fun. Just have
Yeah.
fun doing it. It
Yeah.
is fun. You don't have to take it so seriously. We're all gonna die. Like, you know what I mean? Just have a good time, meet cool people. I've
Right.
met very successful people who are jerks. I've met very successful people who are just awesome human beings. I've also met people who aren't successful at all who are jerks. And I've also met very successful or not successful people that are awesome human beings. So if you're like, well, my perfect intersection is awesome, successful people who are amazing human beings and also enjoy the things that I enjoy, cool, find that cross section and then go, that's the opinion I'm going to listen to,
Yeah.
because that's what I want to be. So I'm going to take that feedback, because those
Yeah.
people are absolutely going to see themselves in you too and go like, oh, well, let me be constructive with you, like you're saying, right? So
Right. Right. Speaking of fun, I've had so much fun talking to you. I'm not sure how busy you are today, but I'd love to do this again. And
yeah,
I'd also love to wrap this up to, this idea of, you've had a lot of coaching. I've had a lot of coaching. We've both been coaches. We've both written books. We're both like immersed in wanting the creativity life. And, what is a piece of advice that you would leave to people as like, for me, right now, I'm in this point where, it's so important to get out of isolation
Mhm.
of the creative process. Like the creative process, of course, it's a very one, especially writing a book or doing a painting, you're spending a lot of time alone. But, what is a word of advice that you would give towards that? Like, you need positive feedback, mentorship, coaching, a group.
Yeah.
Like, how would you share that with someone just to emphasize, like, do it. You're only going to grow.
Yeah. 100%. I would say for me, it's a big thing that I coach on a lot is realizing whether you're a visionary or an integrator of vision. Because sometimes some of the most artistic people that I know, they're not visionaries, but they are definitely integrators of vision. And so, but either one of those roles requires the other. So that's why being in group is very important. You can also hear, if you're an integrator, you hear how other people integrate vision and go, ah, amazing. And then you get a lot of tips and tricks and you build community. And this is going to continue through the rest of your life, right? It's always learning from others. And then if also you're a visionary, you get the same thing. You see how other people vision and the same pain points of the translation and not understanding. And then also you can also hear the other side of it too. Sometimes people think that they're visionaries, but they're actually not. And so being around other people who are, you don't have to feel bad about it. You go, oh, we work together to create synergy and make awesome stuff. Duh, maybe that's why it hasn't been working for me, right? So what I actually hire when I hire in for creative roles, I hire in people for specific roles where I'm like, well, this is a visionary role, so I hire visionaries. And if I'm like, this is an integration role, I hire integrators. So I ask questions to make sure I'm hiring a good mix of those people because you need people that, and here's how I always like to say what that means. The visionaries are the blank page creators. They'll blank page idea stuff all day. Ooh, yeah, 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 yeah. I do that all the time. I'm a visionary. I just vision, 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 vision 24/7, right? But they're usually the people who have a hard time finishing the project.
Uh-huh.
That's
Uh-huh.
where integrators come in. Integrators don't really blank page vision all the time, right? But they can see a project through to the end because they have so much passion because they go, oh, I don't have that initial idea, but I know how to do that. And they get excited and they take the project across the finish line. So when you pair visionaries and integrators together, you usually get projects all the way to the end. Now, both can definitely put the puzzle together, right? But to me, that's the best synergy I've seen created. So I think it's important to learn from the visionaries. It's important to learn from the integrators. It's important to learn visionary to visionary, integrator to integrator, and then just co-create, you know? So I think all of those things we always can continue learning from one another. And can you be a hermit and still be creative? Yeah, but that's not a lot of fun. So
Yeah. Love it. Love it. And then I know I could keep going, but I'll wrap it up because I'm sure you're busy too.
no, I appreciate it.
Talk a little bit about, and then we'll close on this, buddy.
Yeah. So it's funny. I always used to, not always, but I would find myself doing this a lot when I had memories, like covering my face, you know, especially in my like late 20s, early 30s. I started noticing it for the first time, but I would go back to the embarrassment or back to that moment, right? And when I kind of separated myself from Buddy and started almost like reparenting Buddy and I had a lot more empathy for him and I wouldn't go back to that moment, like covering the face or being embarrassed, or, right? And instead I'd be like, Buddy, it's okay. And I'm mentoring Buddy in my own mind like I would my own child. And it's like that's okay. Like it's not a big deal. And I was and started to just kind of get everything that I needed to be so detached from all those trauma, you know, moments and all that kind of stuff and embarrassing moments in life. And so I actually have a huge appreciation for everything that Buddy went through, right? My younger self. And the honest truth is, it just feels like a very different person now. I feel fully formed into at least who I am now. And I might feel this way in another 30 years, you know, and I hopefully will. but it's cool to have these like timestamps of even my own life, and that timestamp of Buddy, like this version of myself wouldn't exist without him. So I'm very grateful. But I also yet again have a boundary there that allows Buddy to have experienced what Buddy experienced, and that I don't have to carry that with me moving into even the future self that I will create in the future. Like so that boundary has been very helpful for me, and I can just continue to be so grateful and mentor Buddy and go back to those moments and talk about it in a way that makes it make sense. And then I have these light bulbs of what I've learned since then, and it's just full of gratitude. And I just he went through a lot of stuff, you know. So I was like, man, me not having back then an understanding of what that was, like Buddy was like he handled it great for what he went through, you know? So, yeah, a lot of compassion, a lot of appreciation for him, and also a lot of freedom for me now to not have to carry that burden into the now.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. And if you want to share with people how to find you, you mentioned TMG a couple times. Share
Yeah.
with people what that is for
Yeah,
those
so
who know.
TMG, sorry, yeah, you're right. So that's called the Manifestor's Guide. So that's a passion project of mine that will be lifelong. Actually, I think that's how we met, right? Years ago
It
through
is.
Manifestor's Guide. And long story short, you can go to manifestorsguide.com, get on the email list. We also have a podcast, The Manifestor's Guide Today, you can subscribe to. We also have a book, The Manifestor's Guide to Ease, that's available as well. We do also do like coaching and courses and all sorts of things as well. That's on pause right now, but that will be coming back in the future at some point. But that really is just, it's what I call it a life solutions company. You know, it's a place for people to come and connect and learn and grow and get into that space where you can be manifesting and removing those blocks faster. And that's where we definitely connect, right? On just remove all the stuff that's getting in your way. Just allow yourself to just be the coolest version of yourself you can be right now and just have more fun doing it. And then people can also find me on Instagram at Dewey Taylor TV. Um, Feel free to also find me on LinkedIn if you want. But yeah, those are my main handles.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks, Dewey. What an awesome conversation. And for those of you, I'm Nicole White. I can be found at NicoleWhiteWellness.com or RavenArtCenter.com. And we're going to continue this conversation again. I know it.
Oh, absolutely. Would love to. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Awesome, Dewey. So good to see you. Thank you so much for sharing.